Let me just go and stand at the place where you expect me to stand, but don't expect me there for too long. I'm very honored to have been invited by you to come and address you today on education, motivation, inspiration. And right off the bat, I'm going to show you that contrary to popular belief that we are becoming more clever, we're becoming more stupid. The evidence is out that 100 years ago, people like you and I could hear and identify more noises than we can. Okay? Because in the days gone by, we knew the sound of a cricket chirping, right? And I bet you if you're in your city, you don't even think there's crickets around, but they are. You just have grown ignorant of that. And then we have this stupid thing on our arm called a watch, right? And if 1% of us knew what problems this watch causes, we would stop wearing it. I'm serious. See, when watches were invented in the 16th century, it had only one hand. There was only an hour hand on a watch, right? In the 17th century, they added the minute hand. And in the 18th century, they added the second hand. And strangely but true, it's only since the 18th century that we get literature that talks about stress. So we introduced our own stress into the world. I often get a call that goes like this. Hey, Dr. Gaffley, how are you? Can you come and do some training for us? And we I said, what do you want me to train on? Well, if you can start off with time management. Nah, I don't believe in time management because it's self-induced. There's other stuff. Time management is just a symptom of another problem. So if you want to go to the problem, yeah. If you want to go to the symptom, no. You get what I'm trying to say to you? We have a lot of these stuff that's muddling our mind, and we have grown fairly insensitive to the population that we serve. So I've said that background for you to try and help you understand this is not going to be your keynote that you used to, where you just sit back and you listen and you lounge and you're like, hey, it was good. Did you enjoy it? Yeah, I did. It was fine. Yeah, it was too long. Yeah, it was boring. Yeah, it was, okay. You're wasting the time, the money, and the energy of your association. So I'm going to talk about motivation. And so, right off the bat, I'm going to tell you we are all driven by our unmet needs. Motivate us. Huh. Didn't expect that one coming, right? So, whether you are a community action worker or a customer, you're driven by the same need, unmet needs. So when two unmet needs meet, what do you have? A clash, a conflict, and you don't get the job done as you expected to have it done. So my question to you, and I'm really asking you this question, are we always motivated? What do you think? I've just said to you, oh, sorry. I'm just trying to move out of the light that's in my eye. So. I'm sorry. Should I start over? No. Okay, I'm going to stand. Yeah, I understand there's method to this madness. That's okay. I'll stay. Right? Just position me where? Right. Okay, so I'm going to stay here. You should have told me I should have brought my sunglasses, but it's okay. So in any event, let me just remind you that my question to you is, are we always motivated? What do you think? Okay, let me be funny and say, what is the opposite of being motivated? Come on, you have some knowledge. Right? Unmotivated, bad English, but I would call it demotivated. Okay, fine. What other thoughts do you have? Do you know, from a clinical perspective, the opposite of to be motivated is to be depressed. When I work with somebody that talks to me about, well, I feel so fatigued, I feel so listless, I've lost my vision, and I'm tired, and I'm constantly in this funk, I don't know, I'm just not motivated. Hey, just call it, you're depressed. Okay? You're not demotivated, you are depressed. And I'm saying to you, I would say, yeah, kind of, sort of, we're always motivated because we always have unmet needs. Right? So let's start doing some samples of what I want to show you about motivation. I want you to stand, and can everybody face, that's the north, right? Can everybody face the north? And make sure you form lines in between the tables, and you can touch the person in front of you. Make sure, come on, work with me quickly. You've got to be able to put both your hands on the person in front of your shoulders. Okay, now, give the person in front of you a nice shoulder rub. Now face the south and do the same. Okay, thank you. Now you may be seated, just for a moment. Okay, can I take over my show again? Get over yourself, it's not yours, it's mine. So, what just happened? What just happened? I didn't talk anything about energy levels or auditory levels or decibel levels or anything going up, but it did, right? So we couldn't measure motivation, but we saw the result. Because when you were massaging the person's shoulder in front of you, you were releasing what? Yes, and what? You were creating endorphins, right? Because before that, a large percentage of the audience here were producing cortisol. And you know what cortisol is? It's the stuff that produces heart attacks. We just lifted you out of your little bit of stress that you have in your angst, and we demonstrated motivation. We can't measure the actual motivation, but we can measure the outcome. Okay? Let's do the second one. The DJ will play music. Can you rise and dance to that music, please? Sing it along if you know it. Okay. Can anybody guess when that song was in the top 100 on the top 100 charts. 1965, it was one of 9 hits of the Beatles on the top 100 hits. 9, right? So, you know and I know that we get most of our narrative of what's happening in our communities in the lyrics of the songs of the era. Did you know that? No, you didn't. Heather, can I go home now? Where's Heather? She invited me. I saw Heather somewhere. Oh, can I go? All right. See, I'm trying to go very slow on purpose because I'm going to hit you very hard with what I expect you to be doing in community action agencies. I just asked you what's the opposite of motivation, and we said it's depression. I then got you into a dance. We released more endorphins. We did some stuff to you. And now I'm going to say to you that imagination is more important than knowledge. When trends are hard and the sky is blue, the focus is on the co-creative energy of education, motivation, and inspiration. I want to repeat that to you because I want you to just think about it. Imagination is more important than knowledge. When trends are hard and the sky is blue. You know, what I'm trying to say to you is, if you go and you do government work, you do what the performance standards tell you to do, you do what the policy tells you to do, you've done nothing. Serious. When you go to somebody and you say, look, I need to talk to you about weatherization or your LIHE program, your assistant, whatever, and you just exchange the facts of the matter, you're not doing anything, right? And I know you come back to your supervisor and you say, these people are so difficult, they're so thankless, you know, they poop all over your parade and they, you know, they're just funny. And you're like, you know, if you work in a hospital and you don't like blood, don't work there. If the kitchen is too hot, get out of it. Okay? That's my message to you, because I want to drive you to getting results. Now, I'm not talking about Roma results, because I'm not interested in management by numbers. Roma is a program on its own, but before Roma, we had what? TQM, Deming Total Quality Management, and it died a slow death. So I guess Roma is going to be the flavor of the month, and it's going to die a slow death. By the time we get Roma, it's going to be over. Right? Because our good, you know, we can do the same with, today it's education by numbers. They drive the number, the outcomes, the appraisals, and the pass rate and all this. At our university, we have SAP, Student Adequate Performance of the Year. It's all numbers, it's all iPads, it's all like that. And I look at my dean often when he speaks and I'm saying, you moron, you know that's not right, why didn't you resist it? There's a bigger picture. If you're not getting, if we're 50 years old and we're battling with the same problems that we had 50 years ago, something is wrong. Something is not working. And somebody better tell somebody, this is not working. The way we do business is not working. You see, education gives you the structures, the systematization of facts. It tells you what you need to do. That's the knowledge. And in my metaphor, I would say, that's the road we're on. The education, the lights go on, and we get more knowledge, we learn, and so we become more informed. Motivation, I think, is the strategies or the vehicle that we use to travel on this road where we learn stuff about people and about how to help them. And then inspiration, I think, is the soul fuel. It's the fuel that gets us going. And I guess that for a lot of us, that's the component. The motivation and the inspiration is not there. Because we've not yet moved from incentivization, and I'm sorry. Sorry, CEOs in the audience. I'm not making an apology for what I'm saying. I'm just saying sorry that I'm saying it in a public forum. I'm nice sometimes. I want to say this to you, that if you drive your program, and everybody must do introspection, if you drive your program and you are really motivated and you want to see change in your program, and you tell your staff and your people, well, if you want Heather to move out of poverty, show her a little bit of a carrot, okay? And if you want Joe to change give him a little bit of kick in the behindies, that's motivation, get him there. If we incentivize community action agent program delivery, we're not doing a good job. Because we should move from incentivization to persuasion. Give me the reasons why I need to change. Because the power, this was a problem for me in South Africa. And I was always in trouble. It's always an uncomfortable position to be a leader because you're lonely. You see things and you're like, I sat with a group of psychologists and I was doing a lecture about, anxiety and separation, anxiety and loss and all this kind of stuff. And I was sitting with these guys and gals, and they didn't get it. I'm like, what do I have to do to make you get what I'm trying to say? The power to change does not lie in the field of the one bringing the message. It's with the one who receives the message. You cannot change anybody that you work with but yourself. But you've got to give them the skill sets so that they can make the change at their level and the way they want to make it. And that's what we lose. Because we think we're driving a program to bring change. No, we bring the catalyst for change. Because the power to change lies with the customer, lies with the client. Right? Please be honest with me. Who of you in this room can make a baby sleep? Please put up your hands. Anybody who can make a baby sleep? No? Becoming honest now, right? So if you can't make a baby sleep, how do you expect to make an adult do what you want them to do? It's an impossibility. Think about it. And yet, a baby is the only human being that loves change. Think about that. Because a baby will soon let you know that my diaper is soiled, change it. Hold on to that metaphor. I'm going to come back to it. We have many examples of what motivation is and what it is not. There's a lot of people in this room that's old enough to remember the Cuban Missile Crisis, right? Bay of Pigs and all the stuff that goes with it. I have in my possession transcripts of the security briefings that JFK had with his cabinet. And I have that because of my role in South Africa when we did the transitioning from apartheid to democracy. I was a card-carrying member of the African National Congress. And just get over yourself. I was in that room when Ted Kennedy was sitting on this side of Desmond Tutu was sitting over there, and I was sitting on that side of the table. And Ted Kennedy does this flick with his hair. He's got some syndrome of hair mania. And may his soul rest in peace. But he said to Tutu, Your Grace, if we impose sanctions, that was 1985 and 19th of January. He said, if we impose sanctions against South Africa, your people are going to suffer most. And Desmond Tutu said to him, yes, Senator, we'd rather suffer for a moment than suffer forever. And in 1985, Ted Kennedy came back, and Congress imposed sanctions against South Africa. Ronald Reagan vetoed Congress. Congress, the only time in your history, overrode a presidential veto. The whole Congress combined and said sanctions, because that's the message that they got. So I've got inside information. JFK, all I'm reading in the briefings is they say to JFK, nail him, nail him. How do we get him? And all the time JFK is saying, how do we allow the Russians to escape? And the Security Council says, Mr. President, you know, they can't say, "Are you out of your mind?" I mean, let's be real, that's the president, right? So like, Mr. President, and he's like, "What's your problem?" I want him to escape. I want Khrushchev to get out of this. Because nobody in the room knew that at that time, JFK was reading the work of Lao Tzu. Anybody heard the name Lao Tzu? Lao Tzu was a philosopher of his time, way back in age. And Lao Tzu said, you never want to pick a fight with somebody that's desperate. There's no guarantee what they're going to do. Aren't you often dealing with people that's desperate? Isn't that your problem when you work with them? You see, the moral is, if you have nothing, you have nothing to lose. If I don't have skin in the game, why should I do what you want me to do? Because you give me no skin. You tell me I'm stupid, you tell me I'm poor, you tell me I'm ashamed, you tell me I'm this, you tell me I'm that. By your attitude, this is another problem, by the way, is there any Head Start people in the room? They go and they do stuff about the respectful language and they think they've done enough. When they say, do you respect the children? Yeah, I do. And then I come and I look at them and I'm like, no, you don't. So what crazy guy are you? What does the respect mean to me? Respect means to me not that you use the right words, but with your attitude you model to me that you delight being in my presence. Do you hear what I'm saying? Does your customers see you come down the road and see your Govy car pull up to their door? And does the lights go on and do they like cherish the moment? Wow, here's a change agent coming my way. No, they're like, tell them I'm not at home. And then the child comes to the door and says, my mommy's not here. You've got a problem. If you look at Israel and Palestine, you would think that the Israelis and the Palestinians would be motivated to bring peace, right? But the more war they make, the more conflict they create. See, you must be very careful what you talk about when you talk about motivation. Because the Egyptians have a saying that says, I cannot hear what you are saying because what you are doing speaks louder than what you are saying. And sometimes we're so pumped up with ourselves that we go and we meet our clients, our customers that we serve. And all that we make them feel is, I'm here, you're there. And until we balance it the right way to make us equal partners, we're not going to get anywhere. So I will use the metaphor of the highway today for motivation. You know, you've got a highway, and you get an on-ramp and an off-ramp. So you're always on this highway moving, right? So you decide where you want to get on, and you decide where you want to get off. You've got that? So what do we meet on the highway? A couple of things. One, drivers get fatigued on the highway, right? And there's road rage on the highway. We sometimes go with the speed on the highway. We break the law. And we have our cars break down on the highway. And all these things happen with us. You can see that's my highway. All these things happen with us in our quest to serve our fellow human beings. And so, let's get the next slide. My favorite, weight loss. How many of you have lost the weight that you wanted to? What's the problem? Why are you not losing weight? Tell me. Come on, tell me. Like food too much? Motivation? Does motivation make you lose weight? Is desire enough? You know, I lost 50 pounds. I've regained about 10. Give and take a few. Yes. But I lost 50 pounds because in 2008 I had a massive heart attack. And I coded twice. They had to resuscitate me with 120 volt and 100. And don't worry, I'm not going to get a heart attack today. And my wife walked past me because they had me on a gurney and they said it's over. And they said we couldn't get him to be revived. And then I'm sitting with my cardiologist 3 months later, and he says to me, Dr. Gaffley, you have to use 375 milligrams of aspirin, 75 Plavix, and total 1,200 milligrams of chemicals. And I looked at him and I said, you must be joking. If you think you're going to throw that stuff on my mouth, because you're going to treat me with chemicals, and I need another treatment. I need to take responsibility for my health. Most of us want to lose weight to look good. That's good. But if you want to lose weight for your own health's sake, the chances of you getting there is much better. Because good-looking desires is fleeting. It's momentary. It's temporary. And then you know you lose weight when you have knowledge about what it does to you. And you know, if you say to yourself things that I'm saying to myself, this is not an opening to a dumpster. I don't throw garbage down here. Because you know, most of the people that are poor, they buy cheap, fatty foods. And so the money that you save on food, you're going to give to the doctor. Because you're going to get sick. So instead of buying a cheap McDonald's burger every day at 99 cents each, you buy one better burger once a week, and you know, you go down that pathway. So let me now start with my presentation. That was this introduction, by the way. I come to you today and I don't give you things about what the book says. And I don't teach that way either. I look at my own life and I look at what brought me out of my oppression. For 48 years of my life, I didn't have any voting right. I didn't have a say. I was told I was nothing. I couldn't do anything in my country. I couldn't own property. I couldn't live in the area where I wanted to. And yet I was, a hardworking man. So I was oppressed. So to move from oppression to opportunity, I needed to have some motivation, right? Some drive. To move from being a victim of my circumstances to become a victor and victorious over my circumstances, I needed motivation. To move from a mess, my life was a mess. If you talk, and I'm honest with you, if you talk to any of my colleagues who was at school with me, you would never believe this is the same guy that's standing in front of you today. No. And when my children see pictures of me with the hair on my shoulder, a flower in my ear, they're like, what? You were a biker, you had chains and leather jackets, and yeah, I don't know, 9 yards. I was rough. But it changed. My mess became my message. I could help people with their life by inspiring them with my story. And I could change from being bitter and angry to become better. Do you want to do that today? Because until and unless you can do that today, you're wasting your time working for this agency. If you haven't experienced transformation, you can't bring change anywhere else in the world. You cannot. It doesn't work that way. You must have your story. Your story must drive you to help people with their stories, so that we can bring all our stories to be known. And so from this moment, I'm here to irritate, to inform, and to educate. And if I irritate you, just know this. Irritation is an invitation to elevation. You gotta get up. I'm not gonna try to lecture to you. I'm not gonna use a clinical perspective on motivation. I'm hoping to find and present practice applications, and I have learned the lessons I'm going to give to you in the therapeutic milieu. I went to work as the CEO of a therapy campus, a couple of campuses in the Western Cape, and I became the CEO, and I went there having studied psychology, having studied theology, having studied social work, you know, the whole 9 yards. I was very well qualified. But when I started working with abused children, young people, girls, for example, one girl was 13, She had 2 abortions at the age of 13. And she was actually sent by a mom to a neighbor to have sex so that they could have money for food. I worked with girls whose mothers would put fish oil on their vaginas so that they can go through the trucking route and have sex, prostitute their bodies so that they can have food. They had no choice. I worked with those girls to bring them back. And you know what? My knowledge was naught. It was nothing. I had to relearn what they had to endure and go through. And so, just for those who are purists in the room, just to show you I know motivation, you can get intrinsic or extrinsic motivation. It's not on there. You can have tangible and intangible motivation. You can have temporary, permanent. How does this work? If you work for the money, and I know the money sucks. Doesn't it? Oh, maybe in your agency it's going better than the others I know. But if you work here for the money, if you work here to think you're going to get rich, forget it. It's not going to happen. Not in your lifetime, right? But the more money you give somebody to improve, the more you have to give them. And it's just temporary. You must go to the point where it becomes intangible and permanent. Motivation must change your status, must change your self-esteem, must change your locus of control. I worked with these kids and I said, you've already been raped. Why do you want to change your lifestyle? Well, they saw no reason why they had to change their lifestyle at all. Then I stumbled on Peter Senge, and I actually met him at MIT when my son went there last year. Peter Senge says, and this is what he says. Can you read that for a second? Can everybody there see them? Oh, there you can see them. Now let me ask you, be honest with me, because I'm going to help you. How many people sitting in this room have seen change in the people that you serve in this past year? Raise your hands. How many of you have seen change? Do you see what I'm talking about? And until you bring that change, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Remember I told you at first that imagination is more important than knowledge? You know who coined that phrase? Any guesses? It's not my phrase. Albert Einstein. And he demonstrated it this way. He was on a train in Europe, and somehow his ticket got lost on the Eurorail. And the conductor came in the compartment and was clicking the tickets. And so Einstein was on the floor looking for his ticket, and the conductor left, and then he looked back and he's like, that's Professor Einstein. And so the next time when he came, Einstein was still on the floor, and he said to Einstein, Professor Einstein, it's okay, I know who you are, you don't have to find your ticket, it's okay. And Einstein looked at him and he said, verdammt, because he's German, right? And he said to the conductor, I have to find my bloody ticket, because without it I don't know where I'm going. We need knowledge and we need imagination, right? We need both. And we sell ourselves short in the realm of imagination. Let me throw you this slide, and I'm going to go for it just a little bit. How many people work in an agency where there's no negative attitude? Raise your hand. How many people work in an agency where there's no racism and no prejudice? Where there's not non-stop gossip? Funny enough, I'm calling you out, right? These things I'm going to throw just all on the board. You can see it all for yourself. No, I don't witness anger, right? That's in your agency. That is the generator room from which you operate, right? That's there, back at the home base. You have unnecessary labor and litigation costs. I'm telling you today, my biggest problem when I work with CEOs of community action partnerships, and I work with a ton of them, I work at the national level, and I'm trying to get them this message. Don't hedge your bets. Do you know how you hedge your bets? When you gamble, I'm not a gambler anymore, okay? But when you gamble and you change the odds, you say, well, I bet on number 7 coming, but in case number 6 comes, I'm putting $1 on both. So when you start doing that in gambling, it's called hedging your bets. You secure your bet that if 7 comes, you win, but you actually bet it against the 7, and in 7 you bet it against the 6, didn't you? So you wasted your money. So let me ask CEOs in the room, when you don't show your hands, it's okay, I know the answer already. How many of you will order a box of pens and pay for it even if it was not delivered? Nobody, right? But yet you have workers who do not perform, but you don't fire them. Why not? Are you a sissy? Because if you don't fire the non-performers, you are killing the performers. Right? You can't have a buddy-buddy system in your program. That's not imaginative. That's not motivational. That's not inspirational for you to hedge your bets to pay the workers, the hard workers, the same money that you pay the non-hard workers because you're too scared of a lawsuit. Because you're not doing your job. If you were doing your job, you would have a record, a paper trail of non-performance. And you would let me give you what I'm talking about. I go to Houston, Texas to a community action agency. I do their work for them, and their check comes in the mail. It's $3,000 over the contracted price. And I call the person in charge of the program, CEO. I said, Doc, you paid me $3,000 too much. So I need to return it to you. And the doctor, the CEO on the other side says, no, we know we paid you $3,000 more. And I'm like, so what don't I understand? And the doc says to me, look, for years now, we've been battling to get rid of our HR director. And it's cost us almost $100,000 in lawsuits. Every time we go to court, they nail us, and he stays on our books, and he just messes up the establishment. And a week after your workshop, he resigned. So we just figured it's better giving you the $3,000 than paying $100,000. You know, you don't have to be nasty to people to fire them. You don't. That's bad manners. You must really work so smart with them that when you say to them, go to hell, they think it's quite a fantastic paradise journey, and they look forward to the trip. Seriously, people, seriously. I'm standing in front of you today because I don't know what I'm talking about. Seriously. I wouldn't know how to write a letter of application for a job. I'm 62 years old. I've never applied for a job. My jobs have always been offered to me, and I've always been invited. So I don't know. You better than me when it comes to that. But one thing I do know, I had very seldom, as a CEO, had reason to fire somebody. I made the place so congenial, so wonderful, that if you're a mess on your own, you cannot tolerate this good system that's running here. But your system supports the unethical behavior of your staff. Your system supports the immorality of your staff because your motivators are wrong. Your inspiration is lacking in your program, and so you cannot produce. Let me tell you some of the reflectors of motivation. Look at that. Can you just show? Yeah. Look at that. If you look at the society from which your staff comes, they live amongst people where there's cruel whispering, and the whispering stuff about broken families in front of children. That's where they come from. I'm going to read this for you because I want you to get this message. We live in a world of if love. You have to do something to earn my love, to get the reward of love. You must behave and I will love you more. Do what I expect you to do, and I will love you. And you work with people who come from the scorching heat of the magnifying glass of people's judgment and criticism. People stand in the bank lines and they say to each other, he's not really doing too well. They say with a smirk. And he's actually holding his baby on his hand. Okay? That's the world where we're coming from. She's not living up to her potential. You know what I mean? You know? That's how we converse with each other. We live in a world where we forget that judgment precludes learning. I have to sit with young people oftentimes, and they berate their moms who was pregnant when they were like 21 or 18 or 19. And then before long, I sit with them, and they're like 16, and they have a baby. And I'm like, see, when you judge other people, you fall into the hole that you dug for them yourself. Most of our best looking and most accomplished people are riddled with self-doubt and a low view of self. Ian Fleming committed suicide. You know, he gave us James Bond, didn't he? He was so riddled with self-doubt. The world in which we live in is not a perfect world. It's a harsh reality. Judging tears people down. We feel better about ourselves if we are fixing them. Do you see what we're doing? That's our motivator, and if we have that in our mind, it's going to come through into our act. What drives you is important. We judge each other to the extent that there's no room for each other to live. I'll give you this example. I had a couple that came to me for marriage counseling, and they'd really grown apart. And I said to them, describe for me a time when you had a good marriage. And they both, on separate occasions, gave the same moment. And this was the moment. They were newlywed, like a year or two, and they were both professionals, and so they decided, I'm talking motivation, you've got to catch the story in the story. And they were both hardworking. They realized, look, we've got to do something about our marriage. So they decided that tonight we can have a night of passion and affection. You know, you're all adults in the room. You know what I'm talking about. You've got to set time apart for these things. It's important stuff, right? And so she ran away from work early and got home, changed into a, lace lingerie, and put, chantilly lace on the bed, all white, all punch. She lit candles, and she was like, when he comes, hey, the stage is set, okay? We just got to take up our positions, okay? So, in any event, he got so excited, he went to the bottle store, and he said, put a bottle of champagne on ice for me, I'll pick it up on my way home, and, it must be red champagne, because that's what my wife likes, and, so he pops into the side room, changes into, you know what I'm talking about. And so he goes with this bottle of bubbly opened, and he calls her name, and she's not answering because she's taken a position already, and he's getting to that position, and then he stumbles, and he throws this red wine over the white chantilly lace. And, I know. That's the moment when the men think, oh, shit. Not going to happen. And that the woman is going to blast you. But she didn't. She said to him, it's okay, hon. We have planned to do something tonight. We just changed the bedding. And that can be washed again. Wine stains, but if you wash it quick enough, we'll just throw it in the washer and let's get over ourselves. And I use that story to help them to reconnect with each other. Because the world that we live in doesn't operate that way. We are tit for tat, butter for fat. And I'm asking you, if you win the rat race, what does it prove? That you're a rat. Nothing else. We don't have a good emotional banking account as we would want to. We run on empty. Our own brokenness causes blindness, and we cannot see the needs and the pain in others. And we lose those essential moments of happiness Malcolm Gladwell, I'm not going to go into the story, but he writes about this thing in New York where the police had problems with crime, and they found it was a certain group of young people, African American, that was committing the crime. And so no matter what they did at this Brownsville in New York, the crime still escalated. So one of the police chiefs went to the captain and said, give me $3,000. I want to go into my neighborhood and buy turkeys for Thanksgiving for the families in our zip code. And it happened. Can you imagine a NYPD knocking on the projects, on the door, and then grandma opens the door and says, Johnny, come see, the police is here. Because that never happens, right? Because they're always running away from the police, and the crime rate just dropped to almost zero in that area because of that intervention. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Oops, something's happening. Sorry, just stay with me. Something's going on. It's not advancing. Am I doing something wrong? Let's go back. I've got no clue what's going on. I'm going to go to my notes. Just let me catch my place. What I want to say to you is we live in a pretty joyless world. We live in a world where accomplishment precedes acceptance, where performance is the currency that buys approval. And the people we work with are so broken that they lost their skill to reach out for help and to communicate their hurt. It's just not possible for them to do that. We come from different cultures. And let me remind you that geography determines ideology. Do you buy that? Where you live is pretty much going to determine how and where you die, unless somebody intervenes. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. I must tell you, if you know where I've come from, and if nobody intervened, and a lot of therapists, I can thank them, and I'm still in therapy, by the way. I go once a week for therapy. And you're like, and you're lecturing to us? It's not a disease to go to a therapist. It's good. I'm on top of my game. And when you ask me, how are you? I don't say fine and lie. I tell you the truth, I'm living my dream. If I don't want to be here, I'm not going to be here. Period. If I don't want to go to work, I'm not going to go to work. If I don't feel that work is doing something for me, I'm not going to waste my time because I've got one life. And if you're hanging in that joint till your retirement, you're wasting your own life. Because you're going to die miserable. Come on. Get a better job. Get a better life. It's there. It's waiting for you. The point of the matter is, we live desolate lives. It's not nice to be poor. I can tell you it's not a shame, but it's damn inconvenient. Okay? Give you two cities quickly and tell me what it is. Palo Alto, California, Fairfax, Virginia. What bell does it ring for you? It's the two wealthiest neighborhoods in the United States of America. But what comes with that? The highest suicide rate amongst young people, Palo Alto and Fairfax, Virginia. Your geography determines pretty much your ideology. Gandhi saw in Durban, South Africa, what he had to go and do in India. If Nelson Mandela was not in Meadowlands and Soweto in the 50s, he would never have had the vision of a free and fair South Africa. Motivation is the process that initiates, guides, and maintains goal-oriented behavior. If you're hungry, your anxiety levels go up and you get driven. Your needs drive you to get food. And if you want to stop me from getting the food, I'm going to fight you. But if you allow me to get the food and homeostasis is reached and then intervene, you can make sense to me. Motivation has the activation, it has the persistence, it has the intensity, and so it goes. It's not a one-off intervention, it's a process. Motivation gives you the why of the behavior. It tells you the reason, the rationale for why it is done. The motivation itself is not measurable, but the observed behavior is. And so, I'm not going to advance this thing anymore because you're wasting my time. Here's a kicker for you. If people do not get what they want, they take it anyway, anyhow. When I pause, I'm giving you time to think. Because you are sitting there and you're like, okay, what's next? What's next? And that learning is not taking place that way. But when you realize what I'm saying, if people don't get what they want, they take it anyway, anyhow. And that's what's happening in our society today. I'll give you an example. I go to CEO Michael and I say, Chief, I need time off because my kid needs to go to the doctor. And then Chief Michael says, hey, you still have those financial reports and those budget items you've got to bring me. So when you're done with that, you can take your child to the doctor. Pretty much average conversation. So what happens tomorrow? You call in sick, right? And the next day, you come to work late. And by Friday, you make your Sunday school lesson plans on the photocopy of the agency. Because it's payback. If you don't care for me, I'm not going to care for you. I go to New York City, come on. There's 3 classrooms next to each other in a rotunda. I'm talking about Head Start. So as I walk through the aisle to get to the classroom number 1, I noticed that the faucet is running. Now, you know, different cities you've got to go into, you've got to know what the codes are. And, you know, when you have food, you've got to have running water. So that's what I'm thinking is something is perhaps a bylaw. And so I said to the first teacher, ma'am, excuse me, but the faucet is running. And she's like, what's it mean? And I'm like, okay. I go to the next one, I say, ma'am, the faucet is running. And she's like, no, it wasn't me. I went to the faucet first with my class. Okay. I go to the third one, and I said, ma'am, the faucet is running. She says, well, we haven't been there yet. And I took all 3 of them to the faucet. I said, just close the damn thing. That's all. Because nobody had a rationale for why it was running. So why do you keep doing it? Why didn't you let it run? Why didn't you make a change? If people don't get what they want, they take it anyway, anyhow, on any day. And so if you don't give your workers what they need, they're going to take it. You know which company has the most shrinkage in society? Guess. Who's the biggest retailer in the world? Who has the biggest shrinkage in the company? Walmart. Why? Walmart pays minimum wage. Okay? So most of their staff cannot even afford health care. And so they take what they want at any given moment in time. In summary of this section of motivation where I told you a couple of stories, the model of the story is actually this. We in our community action agencies spend vast amounts of money on maintenance and resources that deals with our staff that we under-resource our mission and our vision. Can I repeat that for you? We in community action agencies spend a vast amount of energy and resources on maintenance issues while under-resourcing our mission imperatives. We're paying more money for our staff to do their conflict. We fund their conflict. We fund their non-performance. We fund their immoral behavior all the time. that when it comes time to do our jobs, we don't have enough money in our budget to do that. I cannot tell you how many community action agencies have got courses pending. Not in the state, right? You don't do this kind of thing. And so, let me tell you further. I admire Nelson Mandela very much. And he said in 1969, in the Rivonia trial, this is what he said. I've cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal that I hope to live for and to achieve. But if needs be, it is an ideal I'm prepared to die for. He said that at the Rivonia trial in Johannesburg. And then he was sentenced to life imprisonment, of which he spent 27 years on Robben Island in prison. Here's the kicker. We go on the 11th of February 1990, we go to Victor Verster prison, all us young comrades, and our leader is going to be released for the first time. And we're going to see him for the first time. We only saw him in pictures. But we fought the cause. We took up arms to liberate South Africa. And so we were standing there, and then Madiba, as is how we call him, he came out with Winnie on his side, and he took the podium. What I'm going to describe to you now is what I expect you to do. He takes the podium, and he gives us a salute, and we salute him back. All of us, no exception, have guns, with loaded guns, be ready, because our slogan for his release was, one farmer, one bullet. Do you know what that meant? We're going to kill all the whites. On the day of his release, a massacre was planned for South Africa. We all had our guns loaded, and not one gun, multiple guns. I'm talking about Kalashnikovs, AK-47s, and whatever you want to call it, R1s, or 38 specials, Smith & Wesson, you name it. We were thousands with our guns in our hands on our guns, waiting for him to give the signal. This is what he said. Comrades, if we do to them what they did to us, what better are we? We were so depressed. Really? Madiba, you spent 27 years in jail, and you're willing to forgive them? You're willing to forget? We cannot build our nation if we keep working from the point of our hurts and our needs. We cannot. We must rise above what we have to endure and bring to our customers what they need to make a transition. And in bringing them life and liberty and liberation, we will bring it to ourselves. Then a few days later, or not a few days, a year or so later, he becomes the president of South Africa. He was elected on the 27th of April 1994, and on the 10th of May, he was sworn in as our first democratically elected president, and it just so happened he was black. And the minute he took up residence in the presidential house, he called the 7 wives of the 7 presidents that was in power, and you can look at this online on the internet. You can type in Mandela invites to tea, and you'll see the article. He calls the 7 wives, and the one wife of Hendrik French Verwoerd, the person who crushed us to death, the man who really ordered the bulldozers. What I'm going to describe to you now is gory, but it happened in front of my eyes. I can tell it like I've seen it. They would order on a rainy Monday. They would order bulldozers that were 21 deep that way, and they would just roll people into the mud, dead, killing them. And they were all the white, which we at that time called the white bastards. That's how they brutalized us and didn't allow us to carry any weapon for anything. He calls those 7 wives, and he said, I want you to come to the union buildings for tea with me, because I want to make peace with you. I want to forgive you. And so 6 of the wives come, but not Betsy Verwoerd, the wife of Hendrik French Verwoerd, the guy who was He was worse than Nero. Honestly, the man was brutal. He was the inventor of the apartheid system. Oh, I can't tell you. She refuses to come. Madiba on the phone. He phones the army. He says, send me one of those Puma helicopters. Make sure it's loaded with tea and cookies. And take me to Orania. Orania is in a clay where the whites built a lager away from the rest of the other people. That's where they were going to build their new South Africa with the old Union flag. And so he knocks on the door and he says to her these words, Betsy, I invited you to tea. You wouldn't come to tea with the president, but the president can come to tea with you. Do you get my story? What is your story? What do you have to let go? What do you have to do in the words of the movie Frozen? Let it go. Let it go. Because that's holding you down from doing the work that you can do. That's preventing you. And so if you've been hurt and your boss has been nasty or your supervisor has been nasty, just let it go. Just move on. And if you sing Demi Lovato's version or whoever, it's okay. Just let it go into your head. Get over yourself and get going. Do what it is that you are supposed to be doing. Make an entrance into this world and make a difference. If you to this day have not made a difference to the lives of others, make a difference to your own life. Be the catalyst for change in the lives of the customers. Let it go. Go and do what you're supposed to be doing. And if you're really motivated, I'm going to give you a couple of slides. I can send it to you via email if you want me to. Just send me an email. If you're really motivated, then you will have a new understanding of hatred. And I penned this in my 2010 publication, and my colleagues were all like, where did you get this? This is what I penned. I said, if you're motivated, and you educated, and you inspired, then for the first time, you will learn to understand hatred. And you'll deal with hatred, not as a force separate from love, but as love in its frustrated negative form. If you see hatred, don't think that they hate you. Think they just don't know how to express their love. Their love is frustrated. Because really, psychologically speaking, that is what is going on inside of them. And if you're anxious, anxiety can be understood and dealt with as love threatened from within the relationship. That's what makes people anxious. Something is going on inside. And if you're of the jealous kind, and some of us are, but jealousy can be understood and dealt with as love threatened from outside the relationship. Anxiety is inside, jealousy is outside. And if you feel lonely, loneliness can be understood and dealt with as love which cannot find its object. So until you find your object, the loneliness will not dissipate. That's for you and your customers. And grief, how do I understand grief? I don't understand. Let me tell you the story. I sit at the funeral of a guy, one of my persons that's counseling with me. He's going through a horrible divorce with his wife. He did the unthinkable that I told him not to do, and he chose to do it. So he lost a pretty, dazzling wife. And I often look at men and I'm like, you moron, can't you see what you've got? And you're letting it go? I couldn't understand. So my wife and I are both psychology majors, but we're sitting next to each other in this church. And we're in the same community, so this guy's grandfather died. So he is crying profusely. And my wife nudges me, she says, oh, Ian is feeling it really for his grandfather that has died and whatever. Now she doesn't know who counseling with me. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And then we go from the funeral, and I said to my wife in the car, where did you, now we both studied under the same professor of psychology, right? I said, where did you get your psychology degree? And she's like, at UNISA, where you got it from yourself? And I said, well, were you sleeping when Professor Jordan was teaching? I'm like, she's like, no. What's your story? I said, when you see, and I'm going to give you a bummer now, I'm going to deflate you. Sorry. But if you see people standing at a graveside, they crying, then where are they crying for themselves? They're crying about, how can you leave me? How can you do this to me? How can you go so unexpectedly? How must I face life? How must I go on? Because you see, grief is understood for me. Being motivated, being inspired, being educated. I understand grief as love that has had its object and has lost it. And that's why you can cry. Because you have to reconstitute your life. But you're not crying in vain, you're crying because you're crying for the loss of love. Right? Love as it affects you as a survivor. How do I understand despair? Despair can be understood and dealt with as love that it has been rejected and made to feel unlovable. Your clients, your children, your family need only two things from you. Only two. And with that, I'm going to end my keynote. And the two things is this. When you get up tomorrow morning and you're going to do your work in community action that you're supposed to be doing, go out and do this for me. Make sure that everybody you meet understands that they are able and that they are lovable. Can you say that? Able and lovable. You know, you get this saying that says, you can do it, you can do it. You should always model through motivation and inspiration and education that you can do what you're supposed to be doing. And I've got your back. I've got your back. I'll help you. I'm there for you. You know, oftentimes, people just need a touch on their shoulder, like you started the workshop with, and it changed the whole game plan. The energy level just went up and stuff happened. When you started jiving, when you started being happy, you're going to be more productive. Find out the answers to this question. What are you living for? What's the reason for you being alive? Why do you suck in the oxygen that's in competition with everybody else? If you have not got the joy of life, just die. Make it slow and quick or easy death. Just die. Because you are dead already in any event if you're not productive. You must enjoy your life. You must have fun in your life. You must fulfill your life. Because you must be a M-A-C-A dream maker. Are you a dream maker? Keep the dreams of other people alive through education, motivation, and inspiration. Let your story inspire their story to be heard. Thank you.